topics that we'll talk about. Some of the topics that we'll talk about today are state scholarships, Next NC scholarship. That is with our community colleges and our UNC system schools. The North Carolina need-based scholarship, which is for our private colleges and universities. And then some other state programs like forgivable loan programs, the North Carolina Teaching Fellows, the UNC Campus Scholarship, Golden Leaf Scholarship, NC Reach, and maybe some additional state aid as well. So some of the common elements that I'm going to talk to you all about today in the state scholarships are just some common things that you'll see as your student goes through the process. Some of the themes you'll see within that process. So a lot of the students who apply for the North Carolina State Scholarships, they have to be North Carolina residents per the NC Residency Determination Service. So this is a website where your students will go and complete the process to determine whether they meet the North Carolina residency process to be deemed North Carolina residents based off of tuition purposes. They have to be enrolled at least half time. They have to have no prior bachelor's degree. So they're working on their first bachelor's degree to be able to qualify for our programs. They're meeting satisfactory academic progress. So if they are students that are currently in college, they have to be meeting their financial aid satisfactory academic progress, so meeting a GPA requirement, meeting Pell eligibility criteria, and then they cannot exceed the number of semesters funded for state limitations for state aid. Some of the, there is an application deadline for a lot of our programs. So June 1 is the priority FAFSA completion date for our UNC system institutions. August 15th for our community colleges. And then funding may be available for applicants who complete the FAFSA after these dates, but the funding availability is subject to change depending on the budget. And then for private colleges and universities, there is no deadline. It's just when funds are awarded until exhausted. And then we have some programs for our non-resident students who may have parents in the armed forces and personnel for their dependents. So only North Carolina residents per RDS, which is that process that I explained briefly earlier, are eligible for financial assistance from state financial aid programs. There are certain non-resident members of the armed forces and their dependents who do not qualify as NC residents, but they may be eligible for in-state tuition rates. There is an exception that certain non-resident members of armed forces and their dependents who do not qualify as NC residents, they may be eligible for need-based scholarship, and that would be at our private institutions here in North Carolina. So our Next NC scholarship does have certain criteria that your students have to meet in order to be eligible for this program. Most North Carolina students have to have an AGI of less than or equal to $80,000, and they may qualify for at least $5,000 to attend one of our UNC system institutions, and then at least $3,000 to attend one of our community colleges here in North Carolina. And how this works is basically the institutions combine the federal Pell Grant and then their state funds to ensure that students get at least the minimum of the awards, which will be, like I mentioned, $5,000 for the UNC system schools or $3,000 for the North Carolina Community College system schools. Eligible students may have an AGI of less than 80,000 and then SAI of less than or equal to 7,500 as well. And then there may be more aid that's available based off of need at each institution. The need-based scholarship, this is for our private institutions. This provides funding for students who are attending a private college or university and or a nursing school. Eligible students have to have an AGI of 160,000 or less, and then an SAI of $15,000 or equal to or less. A minimum award of $5,000 with more aid available based off of need. So again, this will depend on where your student attends. And then there is a payment schedule that's going to be formulated with our next NC scholarship as well. Funding limits established for state programs. So there are funding limits, as I mentioned briefly. Semester limits for state grants. So programs affected by this are the Next NC Scholarship, so community colleges and UNCs, and then the North Carolina Need-Based Scholarship for private colleges. There are limits, as I mentioned. There are 6 semesters for 2-year degree programs at community colleges. There are 10 semesters for a 4-year degree program and 12 years for a 5-year degree program. And across all programs, there's a 10 semesters limit with 12 semesters for students who need 5 years to finish their program. And then some of this is prorated if the students are less enrolled than less than full time. All right, so now I'm going to go into the North Carolina's Forgivable Loans program. This program is called FELS. You'll often hear folks call this FELS. This is a program that is targeted to 4 different areas. So nursing, medicine, allied health, and teaching. So if you have students that are going into these programs, I would highly recommend looking into the FELS program. For your students who are high school students, this is really, FELS is really for those who may be going into a community college with a nursing or an allied health program, but just wanted to put that out there. They have to, in order, if you do have a student who is in college, students have to be fully admitted into their areas of study at a 4-year program. So they have to be fully admitted into the nursing program or into their teaching program before they can apply or they can receive FELS. We do have an application deadline of March 1st, and then the applications did open up in January of this year. And then the application, like I said, will close on March 1st. You can find out more information about FELS at the CFNC.org website. And then applications are entered into a lottery to be considered for awards. It is not a first come, first serve program. So everyone who applies and has an eligible application will get entered into a lottery at the end. Some of the FELS requirements for eligibility for students to be considered, they have to be a legal North Carolina resident. They cannot be in default or owe a refund under any federal or state loan program. They have to maintain satisfactory academic progress according to the enrolling policy of the institution, enroll at least half time according to the academic standards of the school, and for each semester to qualify for funding. And then they have to be willing to work in a North Carolina designated critical employment field. So if your student goes to school to become a teacher, an elementary school teacher, we'll say, they will then have to work in the state of North Carolina for the number of years that they received funding. So if they received funding for 2 years, they would then have to work as an elementary school teacher for 2 years in order to have the money that was funded to them serviced off. So the student requirements for this program, and when you apply, you have to have a 3.0 for graduating high school students, and this is a weighted GPA. A 2.8 for students who may be pursuing an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. So if your student's already in college, they have to have a 2.8 in order to qualify to apply for FELS. They do have to sign a master promissory note, and this is a loan for 1 academic year plus interest to be forgiven for 1 full year of time of employment. So that's, like I just said, if they went to school to be a high school teacher, or not a high school teacher, to be an elementary school teacher, then they just have to service off 2 years if they receive 2 years of funding. The loan will be forgiven for 2 years of part-time employment in an approved qualified position. So let's say your student or you as the student only work part-time, then that would be forgiven at a part-time rate for FELS. The interest that is accruing on the loan when your student is in school, it's 7%, and that's from the date of disbursement of the loan. And then there is a maximum 10-year repayment, so it can be shortened based off of your service. Okay, so just like with anything, there is a cap on the FELS program and how much you receive. If you are a student seeking a diploma, a certificate, or an associate's degree, that's a $3,000 award per year. And then your aggregate loan limit is 6,000. So you would you could receive FELS for up to 2 years as a full-time student. For a bachelor's degree program, if you are eligible in your sophomore year, as long as you are admitted into your program, you would get 3,000 for the year, and then up to 20,000 for a bachelor's degree program. And then our juniors and seniors get 7,000 per year as a full-time student, and again, that's 20,000 for your program overall. And then master's degree is 10,000. So you would get up to 20,000 for your program. So that would be up to 2 years as long as you are a full-time student. And then doctoral degree programs is 14,000, which is for the year, and then up to 20,000, or I'm sorry, up to 56,000 for a 4 year, as long as you're full-time. This is prorated for those students who may be going part-time. So just wanted to throw that out there. And then priority is given to our juniors and seniors, as those students are likely to be fully admitted into their programs of study. And then we have our North Carolina Teaching Fellows. So this is a program that we administer for the UNC System Office and for the Teaching Fellows Commission. And so this program is for any incoming freshman, transfer community college student, current college student who decides to enter into the education field, and individuals who may be seeking a licensure only. And the programs that are a part of this program, the Teaching Fellows program, is STEM, special education, and elementary education. And there are only particular institutions that participate in this program, such as App State, East Carolina, Elon, Fayetteville State, Meredith, NC NC State, Chapel Hill, Charlotte, and UNC Pembroke. Students have to be full-time, but there are exceptions that are made for some of our licensure students who may not meet the full-time requirement. The loan is up to 5,000 per semester. And then students, again, do have to apply for the promissory note. So if you have students who are going into these fields of study, I would recommend looking into the Teaching Fellows program as well. And it kind of works similar as the FELS program, but this is just solely dedicated to our education majors in STEM, special ed, and elementary education. And so now I will hand it over to my colleague Sean to talk about his programs.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much. Before I get started, just wanted to mention that Michelle touched on this initially. As a state agency, of course, we oversee many of the state-funded programs, but there are also few programs that are not actually state-funded that we actually oversee. So I will be touching on those a bit, and I'll identify those as I go forward. First, here before us, we have what's referred to as the UNC Campus Scholarship Program. This program is available at the 16 UNC system colleges or universities, excuse me. Basically, with this program was developed in 2002. It's a consolidation of several programs. With this particular program, funding is available for students who are undergraduate as well as doctoral students. A standard eligibility requirement is that the student must be a North Carolina resident as confirmed via the residency determination services process that Michelle spoke of earlier. The unique thing about this particular program is that there are not established eligibility criteria or rules, I should say. There's eligibility requirements, but we do not establish those eligibility requirements. The eligibility requirements for the funding related to this program varies from school to school or institution to institution. Each institution's leadership was given the ability to develop what we consider or call a campus plan to determine how they would utilize the funding that they receive from this program. So it's possible for a student to go to UNC Greensboro, for example, and receive funding through this particular program, but they may go or apply to another institution and not be offered funding through this program because of the criteria being different from an eligibility standpoint. But funding is available at each of the UNC system schools. It's just a matter of what each institution's eligibility requirements are for the program's funding. And there's not an additional application or anything that has to be done for the student to be considered. The Office of Financial Aid would automatically determine if a student is eligible to receive funding through this program once they go through the process of determining everything the student is eligible to receive. Just like the eligibility requirements, the award amounts vary from campus to campus as well, because again, that is determined by the leadership of each individual campus. Next. Next up is the Golden Leaf Scholarship Program. This is a program that we oversee. We at the State Education Assistance Authority, we oversee this particular program, but it's not actually a direct state funded program. This program, I like to say it's owned by the Golden Leaf Foundation, which is based out of Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. We are actually the hired help, if you will. We oversee all aspects of this program. Well, one version of the program, I should say. There are actually two versions of the program, as you can see before you. One that's for students that are planning to attend a 4-year college or university within the state of North Carolina. And then there's another for students who are planning to attend a community college. The State Education Assistance Authority, we are charged or responsible for overseeing the Golden Leaf Colleges and University Scholarship Program that we often refer to as the Golden Leaf Scholarship for short. As I indicated, it's for students who are planning to attend a 4-year college or university in the state of North Carolina. There are currently 58 participating institutions with this particular program, and student must either be a current preparing to graduate North Carolina high school student, or they must be currently enrolled in a North Carolina community college student with community college with plans to transfer to a participating 4-year institution. The student must be a resident of a qualifying North Carolina county. There are 100 counties in North Carolina, but for the 4-year version of the scholarship, 78 of those counties have been deemed as qualifying counties by the Golden Leaf Foundation. And as I indicated, we directly oversee this particular version from A to Z, that being the application all the way through student applications being reviewed, decisions being made in regards to who would receive an award offer, and going through the process to deter or ensure that the funding is actually released to the schools on behalf of the students each semester. Then there's also a community college version of the scholarship. We at the authority do not oversee this particular program. We did think it was still important to mention it to you all tonight. Um, every community college in North Carolina participates in the program. There are 58 community colleges, and each of them actually participate in the program. For the community college version of the scholarship, 94 of North Carolina's 100 counties have been deemed eligible by the Golden Leaf Foundation as qualifying counties for the community college version of the program. As I indicated, we do not oversee this. Each community college actually oversees their version of the Golden Leaf Scholarship when it comes to this. So you would need to make contact, and I'm probably jumping ahead here, but make contact with the financial aid office of the community college your student planning to attend in order to find exactly what the process is as far as application, any documentation that may need to be submitted, and anything else related to the particular process. But once again, for the 4-year version, the authority agency that we're with, we oversee everything from beginning to end. But with the community college version, that's actually handled directly by the financial aid office of each community college. Next. All right, the 4-year version of the scholarship that we directly oversee, as I mentioned, the student must be a North Carolina resident for tuition purposes, and this must be confirmed through the residency determination services process. Okay, once again, it must be a current North Carolina high school senior that's preparing to graduate, or a currently enrolled North Carolina community college student who's planning to transfer to a participating 4-year institution. The FAFSA is required. So student must submit a FAFSA to the U.S. Department of Education for processing. And from that, the U.S. Department of Education must calculate the Student Aid Index, which we refer to as the SAI. Once again, that's the Student Aid Index. And with the once the Student Aid Index is calculated by the Department of Education for the Golden Leaf Scholarship Program, the student's SAI must be 15,000 or less. Must be 15,000 or less. The student must have a cumulative GPA of at least a 2.5. That's the minimum GPA that will be considered. And once again, the student must be a resident of a qualifying rural county. The scholarship itself is valued at $3,500 per academic year. That would be a maximum of $1,750 each semester when we're looking at just the fall and the spring semesters of each school year. And someone who's receiving this fresh out of high school, they can receive it for up to 4 years. So over those 4 years, the total amount they can receive from the Golden Leaf Scholarship Program is $14,000. For someone who is transferring from a community college, they can receive program funding for up to 3 years. So the total that they could receive overall would be $10,500. The application for the Golden Leaf Scholarship Program, it opens up the first Monday following the first of January of each school year. So for example, for the current cycle that we're in, for the 25-26 school year, the application opened on January the 6th, and it will remain open and close at midnight on March 1st. So the application is currently open and it will remain open until midnight on March 1st. In order for a student to be considered, we must have the application and all required documents, which would be explained to the student within the application itself by midnight on March 1st. With the Golden Leaf Scholarship Program, with this particular version especially, there's an emphasis by the foundation on leadership development. So, in addition to the student receiving scholarship funding to assist with their cost of attending school, there's also opportunities that are presented to the students by the foundation for other leadership and internship opportunities as they try to assist the students with developing not only educationally, but personally and professionally as well, with the focus on them potentially returning to a rural county in North Carolina. Next. Okay, the community college version. As I mentioned, we do not oversee this particular program, but we do know that there are students who are planning to go to a community college. So we want to make sure that those students are aware of this program. For the community college version of the program, there are two tracks, if you will. There's a student who's on a curriculum track, and then there could be a student that's on a workforce continuing education track. The eligibility requirements are slightly different. You will notice that the first two bullet points under each track are the same. The differences come into play with the third and fourth bullets. With the third bullet, the student must be enrolled full time if they're on a curriculum track, and they must demonstrate financial need as demonstrated by completing the FAFSA. So if the student is on a curriculum track, they must complete the FAFSA in order for the financial aid office to determine if the student is eligible to receive funding. If it's a workforce continuing education student, in addition to being a North Carolina resident residing in a qualifying county, they must be enrolled in the workforce continuing education pathway. There's a specific path, track, however you want to word it, that the student must be enrolled in to be classified as a workforce continuing education student. And with that track, FAFSA completion is not necessarily required. It could be based on the school's requirements. So that's why I mentioned you would need to speak with the financial aid office to find exactly what the requirements are. But with a workforce continuing education student, the financial aid office could actually have another means of determining if a student has financial need or not. It may not necessarily be the FAFSA. The curriculum track, yes, the FAFSA is required. But with the workforce continuing education track, it's possible that the financial aid office may use some other method to determine if the student has financial need in place of the FAFSA. All right, with the community college version, just wanted to tell you the maximum award amounts. If it's a curriculum student, the student can receive up to $2,250 each school year, and that's including summer terms. If you recall, with the four-year version that we directly oversee, I mentioned that it's a fall spring scholarship. With the community college version, it's not doesn't necessarily have to be a fall spring. The student could also potentially receive funding during the summer as well. For a workforce continuing education student, the award amount is up to $1,850 per year. And as we have listed here, there are specific items that this funding can be used for: tuition, fees, books, supplies, and then with special provisions, it's possible that funding could be used to assist with childcare and transportation expenses. Once again, the application procedure can vary or differ from school to school as far as colleges. So you would need to make contact with the financial aid office to find out exactly what the application process is or procedural process is, so that you could be considered, your student could be considered. Just wanted to make a note here. If a student receives the community college scholarship, that doesn't automatically make them eligible to receive the 4-year version of the scholarship if they decide to apply as a current community college student who's planning to transfer to a participating 4-year school. They're two totally separate application processes. So it's possible that a student could receive funding as a community college student and not receive it as a student who's attending a participating 4-year school. However, someone who has attended or is attending a North Carolina Community College can submit an application to be considered to receive funding through the 4-year version as they plan to transfer to a 4-year institution. Next. Okay, the Aubrey Lee Brooks Scholarship. This is another scholarship that we oversee at the State Education Assistance Authority that is not funded by the state of North Carolina. It's actually a privately endowed scholarship that we have been, I'm gonna say, hired for lack of words, to directly oversee. And once again, we oversee this program from A to Z. As you can see, it was established in 1955 by a prominent attorney, Attorney Aubrey Lee Brooks. 1955, so as you can see, it has been around a very long time, and from all indications, it will be around forever, which is a good thing. This particular scholarship is available to current North Carolina graduating high school students who are residents of one of the 14 eligible counties. So for this particular program, out of 100 counties in North Carolina, currently 14 other counties have been deemed by the Aubrey Lee Brooks Foundation to be eligible for consideration for this particular program. Not only do we oversee the scholarship, we also oversee or have central administration over the foundation itself. So we have direct contact with with the foundation. We work with them, and we make sure that everything is in place for the scholarship to run smoothly. Each year, 17 scholarships are awarded through this particular program to graduating high school seniors. The eligibility criteria is listed. Must be a current North Carolina high school student that's graduating. So, for example, a student who would be applying during this current cycle, which is the 2025-2026 cycle, the student would be graduating at some point during this current 2024-2025 academic year. As I mentioned, there are 14 qualifying counties. We have them listed here: Alamance, Bertie, Caswell, Durham, Forsyth, Guilford, Orange, Person, Rockingham, Stokes, Surrey, Swain, and Warren County. Those are the 14 counties that have been deemed qualifying or eligible counties for this particular program. The student must be planning to enroll in one of the three participating institutions. So as you can see, this program is very limited in regards to the eligible counties, as well as the number of institutions that are currently deemed qualifying for this program. Currently, NC State, UNC Chapel Hill, and UNC Greensboro are the only three institutions in the state of North Carolina that are deemed qualified. So the student must be planning to attend one of these three institutions to receive consideration for the scholarship funding. Also, the Aubrey Lee Brooks Scholarship Program does require that the FAFSA be submitted to the U.S. Department of Education. Once again, we're looking for the Student Aid Index, the SAI. For this particular program, the student's SAI must be 12,000 or less. Once again, it must be 12,000 or less as one of the eligibility requirements for this particular program. Next. All right, the Aubrey Lee Brooks Scholarship, the value. It's valued at $12,000 each academic year. It's a fall spring scholarship as well, so that's $6,000 per semester. It is renewable, so the student can receive it for up to 4 years, which would be a total of $48,000. In addition to the scholarship funding, each selected student receives a one-time technology stipend of $2,500. So, leading or going into the first year of the student's college career, they would actually receive a stipend from the foundation for $2,500 to purchase technology, computer, and other electronic type things that are related to their educational pursuit. That's a one-time award, that $2,500. But in addition to the scholarship and the technology stipend, the scholars have the opportunity to submit application to be receive funding to assist with the cost of summer school and internship participation, research participation, as well as traveling abroad. Just to give you an idea, scholar for the summer school funding is going to vary depending on what the students' summer costs are to attend summer school. But with the internship and the research initiative, students who are approved for that funding, they receive a flat stipend of $5,000 to assist them with those items. And for students who are traveling or studying abroad, they can receive up to $12,000 to assist them with their travel abroad experience. With that being said, any other financial aid the student is receiving when it comes to traveling abroad, that is taken into consideration. We work closely with the financial aid office to find out what other aid the student is receiving. So the student could be receiving aid from another source to assist them with that travel abroad experience that could impact or reduce the amount that the student could get from the Aubrey Brooks Scholarship Program to assist them with that. But it's quite common for students who are seeking funding through the travel abroad experience portion of this to receive the maximum $12,000. Just wanted to share that because that's a big perk that we do see many students taking advantage of when it comes to the additional funding that they're eligible to receive, especially when it comes to internships and research fellowships. As I indicated, the scholarship is renewable. Providing that the student continues to show financial need, the FAFSA has to be submitted each year. The student must be enrolled full time at one of the three participating institutions, NC State, UNC Chapel Hill, or UNC Greensboro, and the students are required to maintain a minimum cumulative GPA of 2.75. And then they must remain in good standing or have good citizenship in regards to their university environment. And part of that good citizenship is the student ensuring that they meet the school's satisfactory academic progress policies when it comes to financial aid eligibility purposes. Just with the same as with the Golden Leaf Scholarship Program, the application it opens the first Monday following the first day of the new year, and it's open through March. So for this current cycle, it opened on January the 6th, and it will close on March 1st. Next. Okay, this is a program that we do not directly oversee. It's referred to as NC Reach, but the official program name is Child Welfare Post-Secondary Support Program. And I'm going to make sure that I read these items carefully because I want to make sure that I get every detail correct because once again, we do not actually oversee this program. It's a program that we work with, but we're not involved with application, determining eligibility, and things along that line. From an eligibility requirement standpoint, the student must have aged out of the North Carolina public foster care system or the student must have been adopted from foster care after the age of 12. Okay. Also, the student must be between the age of 18 to 25. The student must enroll at least half time at a North Carolina community college or one of the UNC system schools. Once again, there are 16 UNC system universities. So the student must either be enrolling in a North Carolina community college or one of the 16 UNC system schools. And they can either be seeking their undergraduate degree, a diploma, or a certificate. So you have those two school options as far as community college or the four institutions that are tied to the UNC system. And also, you could be either pursuing an undergraduate degree, a diploma, or a certificate. And a very important part of it, we don't see a lot of this, but students must not be in default or owe a refund under any federal or student loan or grant program. So the student must not be in a situation where they've received funding from a federal or a state source. And for whatever reason, let's say the student received funding, it was determined later on the student wasn't eligible. So basically, funding is due back to that program. The student cannot be in that particular situation. We don't see it commonly, but it's something that we like to mention because it has happened on rare occasions. As far as the value, when it comes to the NC Reach program, it can be up to the student's cost of attendance, but once again, the financial aid office must take into consideration any other aid the student is receiving. So let's say, for example, the school's cost of attendance is $20,000. If the student is receiving $5,000 in federal Pell Grant, for example, the financial aid office must take that in consideration, and then they would give the information back to the Division of Social Services, advising them that the student has that $5,000 award already through the Pell Grant. Therefore, the student only has $15,000 of room remaining before they're at the cost of attendance. So once again, some students are receiving every dollar directly through the NC Reach program, but in most cases, the students are receiving funding from some other source. So those other sources have to be taken into consideration when it's determined how much the student can receive through the NC Reach program. The application process, it can be found at ncreach.org. Once again, this program is directly seen or overseen by the North Carolina Division of Social Services. They handle everything from I shouldn't say everything, but they handle the majority of the process, I should say, as far as receiving student applications, determining eligibility. And then once they determine that a student is eligible, they send that information over to the State Education Systems Authority, our office, and we are what is considered to be the fiscal agent, which means that we are responsible for ensuring that the money actually is released to the school on the student's behalf. So everything with the process is handled through the Division of Social Services, except for ensuring that the funding itself is released to the school on behalf of the student. Next. All right. Really not a lot to share here other than the fact, once again, if you're not familiar with CFNC.org, please become familiar with CFNC.org. But we wanted to make sure everyone is aware that there is a scholarship search engine or scholarship search tool, if you will, at cfsc.org that many students find valuable. It not only provides information related to some of the programs that we've talked about tonight, it provides information related to scholarships in general. It's a little different from some of the national scholarship search engines you may be familiar with, where this one is based in North Carolina. CFNC.org, of course, is a component of North Carolina, and majority, if not all, of the programs mentioned through the search engine on cfnc.org are directed towards students who are planning to attend a college university in North Carolina. So, like I said, there's not anything wrong with the national scholarship search engines, but this one is narrowed down a little more, or pared down, where students are actually able to use custom searches to narrow down their search. So you're not having to read through 500 scholarships to determine, if you're a student or if you meet the eligibility criteria. You can actually kind of hone in on what you're interested in. Or, like I said, these scholarships are more so geared towards students who are planning to attend a college or university in North Carolina. So once again, just want to be sure that you are aware that that is a tool that is available at cfnc.org. Next. All right, well, seems like that is the last slide that we officially wanted to cover with you all. So at this time, we'll see if there are any questions that have not already been answered, and to see if there anything else that we need to discuss tonight.
Hey, Sean, there's one in the chat that I
Mhm.
didn't want to. I knew the answer, but I also didn't want to answer it incorrectly just in case it was wrong. But um, are the Next NC Scholarship and Golden Leaf Scholarship awarded on a rolling basis?
Rolling basis. Take a shot at that. Not quite sure what they mean by rolling basis.
Yeah, that's the part that confused me.
um, I'm going to assume when they say rolling basis, they're asking about the application process itself. With Next NC, when a student has been accepted by a college, a community college, or a UNC system school, if they've completed the FAFSA, the financial aid office will automatically determine if the student is eligible to receive funding through the Next NC scholarship program. So as far as rolling basis, I'm assuming they're saying, is it an ongoing thing? And I would say, yes, that is the case. As students, as their FAFSA records are received from the U.S. Department of Education, I know for a fact the student has to be accepted by the institution. In
Mhm.
most cases, before the financial aid office would determine whether a student is eligible. So in that instance, I'm going to say yes. As far as the Golden Leaf Scholarship Program, with the same thought in mind related to rolling basis, the answer is going to be no. The application is open from January to March. After it closes in March, we then have a review process that we go through, and there's actually a grading rubric that is used to grade the various pieces of the scholarship process and the documentation that students are required to receive. And once we've reviewed or gone through that process with all the eligible applications, 215 students are selected. I did not mention that in the presentation, but each year, 215 new students are selected to receive Golden Leaf scholarships. But that is not an ongoing thing. Like I said, there is a specific application period, and we have an official review process that we go through, and then we determine which students are going to be offered a scholarship based on how they score with the grading rubric that we use.
Thank you, sir. And then could you share the criteria and the amounts for the UNC campus scholarship at NC State? And I know this is based off of institution, but I'll let you.
Unfortunately, no, I'm not able to share that information because we don't officially have it. We have it in storage, but we don't have it on hand because it's not something that we work with on a regular basis. So the best thing would be for you to contact the financial aid office there at NC State to ask them, because once again, they're going to need to look at your record and look at the eligibility criteria that they've designated or they've laid out or that has been approved, and they would be able to tell you if you would be eligible for that funding or not. So it would be more beneficial if you were to contact the financial aid office directly to ask them, because they know what their criteria is. In addition to, they would be able to look at what the criteria is to make sure they have all required documentation on file, and they would be able to share that information with you. Aubrey Lee Brooks is not available for graduate students. It's only for undergraduate students.
There's a question in here about international students and college scholarships towards tuition. A lot of institutions, this is based on their institutional policies, whether they have international scholarships or endowments. So I will speak from my perspective that a lot of international student scholarships are institutional based, and some institutions offer them while some don't. So that's one of those things where you just have to reach out to the institution to determine whether they offer those types of
And
scholarships.
exactly. And what I find in many of the scholarships programs that I work with FAFSA being required, just because it's an international student doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be eligible, but the student does have to have a fully processed FAFSA by the U.S. Department of Education that gives that student aid index. And I walk lightly as I say that, because there are certain statuses in which a student, they may be international, they can complete a FAFSA and successfully get a student aid index. And there are some statuses where students are not able to get a student aid index. So it's one of those things where we can't answer directly to say yay or nay. The student would actually have to submit the FAFSA if the FAFSA is required for those programs. And that's one of the things, one of the hangups, for lack of words, if you will, that I see, that oftentimes it comes down to whether the student can actually successfully have a FAFSA processed or not.
Do students that have a higher SAI get any kind of financial aid or scholarships? Again, I would think that that's based off of institutional awarding policies, but Sean, I'll let you kind of speak from your
No,
perspective.
no, I think you're 100% correct. It depends on the program. We've only highlighted the programs that we work mainly with. That's not to say that there aren't other programs that where students can have higher SAIs and still qualify for funding. So it's one of those things where I would suggest that you speak with the financial aid office. That's going to be your source. You're talking about money and what your student may be eligible to receive. Financial aid is going to want to be one of the places you want to become very comfortable with, and they can help you and guide you to determine whether there's something likely from an institutional standpoint, or they may be familiar with other scholarships, well as departmental scholarships, or maybe some other outside source where students who have quote unquote higher SAIs may still be eligible to receive funding from various programs.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm looking here. I see a comment where it says, "I found that schools don't know yet and don't give that information out." I'm not exactly sure what that is in reference to. It is at the beginning of the process, if you will, as far as with schools getting all the information that they need, and all schools don't start determining student eligibility at the same time. So once again, that can vary from school to school. You would only know what that school's processing calendar is, maybe by looking at their website, and if it's not available on their website, actually contacting the financial aid office directly to find out where they are. I was speaking with the school official earlier today, and they indicated that they don't anticipate starting to do financial aid packages until the end of March, or award offers until the end of March. So it can vary from school to school. So you could be talking to school A, and they may be getting ready to start at the beginning of next month, and you may have another school who's not preparing or getting ready to do it until the beginning of April. So it can vary. And some schools may not have all information in place or all systems in place at this point where they can start determining student eligibility for financial aid.
Her comment was towards the UNC campus scholarship. The school pushed her off to us, the state. So that's why she was asking.
Not quite sure why they did that. That's not something that we that's a program we really truly don't discuss with anyone because it's handled directly on the campuses. And the schools do know what their criteria is. I'm not quite sure why she was told that they didn't know what it is or they didn't have that information to give out. It may be one of those things where they don't divulge that information directly to the public. That may be maybe that's a office policy or something along that line. But all institutions know what their eligibility requirements are for the UNC Campus Scholarship Program.
Thank you, sir. And then one last one that I see in here. Do you apply for Brooks every year?
Brooks, you do not have to apply every year with Brooks. Once a student is a recipient, we automatically initiate the renewal process each year on behalf of the student. So no, there is not an application process. With the with the Golden Leaf Scholarship Program, the student does not apply every year as a new student. However, there is a renewal process that recipients have to complete each year in order for their scholarship to be renewed. So for the Arbor Lee Brooks Scholarship, no, there's not a renewal process or an application process that has to be done each year. But for the Golden Leaf Scholarship Program, like I said, there's not a new student application that's done each year. However, the students do have to complete a renewal process for their scholarship to be renewed.
All we got so far.
I'm looking at this. I think the same young lady is responding, and she's saying
Yeah,
App State says the state hasn't decided yet, and UNC says it's a
it's
secret.
a secret.
Trust me when I tell you, the institutions do know what the allocations are as well as what the eligibility criteria is.
Well, thank you, Sean and Michelle, for that information. And as we wrap up, I wanted to share just a few more details with you before ending today's presentation. So if you can see my screen, I wanted to make sure to leave you all. We always like to share that a great way for North Carolina residents to be able to save on their education is by taking advantage of in-state tuition. And so schools, North Carolina public schools offer in-state tuition for North Carolina residents, and the savings can be quite significant. So if you or your student is considering school and are considering the cost, just keep in mind that if you're a North Carolina resident that qualifies for in-state tuition, that's going to be a great way to have savings. So here on the screen, I have for you the annual savings for North Carolina students attending a four-year public institution, so a UNC system school. That's going to be 14,205 annually. And for a student attending a two-year institution or community college, that's going to be 5,700. So this can be significant savings for you and your student. And the application method for in-state tuition is going to be residency determination service at ncresidency.org. And we also like to share with you all the NC Promise tuition plan that's available at some of our schools. So if your student or yourself are interested in Western Carolina University, Fayetteville State University, Elizabeth City State University, or the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, you or your student could qualify for in-state tuition, which is going to be $500 a semester. Or if it's out-of-state tuition, it's still reduced to $2,500 a semester. So again, this is something to consider for you and your student. And lastly, just making sure that you're all aware of our upcoming programming. So next Monday, we're going to have a FAFSA walkthrough. So as you heard today, some of our programs do require the completion of the FAFSA to be able to be eligible. And so make sure that if you have any questions or you're stuck in that process, that you register for our webinar next Monday to be able to get your questions answered. And then on Monday, the 24th, we're going to be having a webinar evaluating financial aid offers letters to make sure that you and your students understand how to compare those to be able to make the best financial decision for your family. So make sure that you head over to cfnc.org/events to be able to get registered for any of those webinars. If there aren't any more questions for our presenters today, I want to thank you all. I'm going to stop the recording now. And I want to thank you all for your time. And again, this was recorded and the presentation slides will go out later this week to everyone who registered. So thank you, Sean and Michelle, for being here and giving us all this information. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.